read the land acknowledgement, equity and land acknowledgement. Stumbling on my words. Nobody? Okay, I can read it. We, as the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission, want to begin this meeting by affirming BPAC's commitment to equity and racial justice. We would like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on lands that have served as the home for diverse Indigenous communities long before current governments were established here. We pay our respect to the elders and members of these communities, both past and present, and recognize the harms of genocide and colonialism. We will make a conscious effort to reflect on the following questions as we advance through our business and contemplate changes in our community, and we will recognize that achieving equity requires our commitment to an ongoing process. How can we seek to repair harm with our work and not erase history? How does our work impact the vulnerability and safety of people who hold many intersecting marginalized identities, including Black, Indigenous, and people of color, people with disabilities, and lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning people? How can we prioritize and center people in our decision-making? How can we be more responsive to local needs? How can our work build community power and shared decision-making? All right, so we'll go through and do roll call. If you don't have a microphone, shout. I don't know. I'll go ahead and start, and we'll just go around the table and then go to that table. So I'm Mary Rose. I am the current chair for BPAC, and I am the Bicycle Community Liaison. And make sure to use your microphone.
I got it. I am Nathan Lee. I'm the Duke Liaison position for BPAC, and I'm also the chair of the Planning and Policy Subcommittee.
I'm Chris Perlstein. I'm the vice chair.
I'm Ed Rizzuto. I participate with the Community Engagement Committee, and I was appointed by the county to serve in the Disability Advocacy seat.
Jeff Bacalchuk. I am a city at-large representative, and I'm the liaison to the Bike Walk Plan.
John Lawler. I'm the county's senior advisory representative on DevRev and on planning and policy.
Scott Carter, and I'm the chair of the Development Review Committee.
I'm Hannah Bartlebaugh, and I'm a youth advocacy rep for the county and the community engagement chair.
Brent Cormier, secretary, member of DevRep committee, county at large member.
I'm Rosie Edmonds. I'm the youth representative, and I'm a part of the community engagement.
Maggie Green. I'm the Recreation, Urban Trails, and Greenways representative, and I am also our social media.
And then Trevay, could you introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Trevay Willis. I'm the transportation rep, BPAC.
Hi, Katie. Sorry, we forgot to add you. We're going through introductions. Could you introduce yourself?
That's okay. Yes. Hi. My name is Katie Shea Peralt. I'm a commissioner with the BPAC representing the city at large. And I apologize for not being there in person today. I'm feeling a little under the weather, but glad to join you remotely.
Would anyone else like to introduce themselves? No pressure. Great, thanks everyone. So we have a lot of excused absences. So all were, excused. So Jordan Powell, Andrew Birch, Nate Dixon, Tony Reevy, Matt Kopek, Wendy Jacobs, and Hannah Savaggio are all excused. But we do still have a quorum. And then as for updates to membership, we still have Kayla Keels pending for the City at Large 3 position, and Ed Rizzuto will be rotating off in either June or July. sometime
June
this summer.
3rd.
June 3rd will be his last day. All right, and then we're just going to have a quick moment of silence for Jack O'Shea and his family, who Jack was killed while riding his bike on Saturday. All right, thank you. So next on our agenda is, are there any adjustments to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of February commission minutes. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes? Sorry, March minutes. I meant to update that. All right.
Second.
It is moved by Jeff and seconded by John. All those in favor, raise their hand or say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing and seeing none, the March commission meeting minutes have been approved. And then we have public comments. So Ed, would you like to provide your public comments? And wait, push it again. It was already on.
Is that on? Okay. Yeah, thank you. I am speaking as a community member of the north part of Durham, and I intend to share these comments at some point with the Durham Open Space and Trails Commission and Lauren Grove with the Vision Zero group at the Department of Transportation. I learned through one of these meetings several months ago some news that impacts the area where I live. I live in the Eno Trace subdivision off of Infinity Road, about a mile east of North Roxborough, where Infinity meets Roxborough, and then Lotta continues on the other side. Years ago, that intersection had been designated as one in need of renovation and restructuring by NCDOT, and it was destined to break ground, I believe, next year in 2027. A few months ago, it was announced here. I had asked the presenter, I don't remember exactly who was presenting at that time, what the status of that project is. And the response was, it's no longer on a list to get done. And there's no set timeline for when it will get done, but the need for getting it done is still there. So for those who aren't familiar with the intersection, it's really busy. It's North Roxborough going north-south, Lotta coming in from the west and Infinity from the east. There are absolutely no markings, no pedestrian lines in the road. There's no way to cross. There are no crosswalk signals. There are no crosswalk lines, and people still cross there because there is a lot of activity there. And on the southwest corner, there's a Food Lion and a McDonald's and a police substation. On the northwest corner, there's a CVS. A little ways up, there's Eno Valley School, the public library. On the southeast corner, there's a BP and several businesses. As you go further down Roxborough, northeast corner, similar, there are businesses, a Subway restaurant. So people use the intersection, including pedestrians, bicyclists, probably not a lot, but people do use it. It's really dangerous. A little ways down Roxborough, coming in towards town, there's a street that comes out of one of the neighborhoods on the east side of Roxborough. The street is Omega Street or Omega Road. It comes out of the Forest Park neighborhood. And people are crossing there. There's a number 4 bus stop on that side of the road heading north, and the number 4 bus stop across the street at the entrance to West Point on the Eno. That's where people cross for the most part. Again, there are no markings, there are no pedestrian lines, there are no signals there. It's a dash to get across the street, but people do it to get back and forth between the bus stops, to get to whatever they want to do on the other side of the road, go shopping at Food Lion, go eat at Silver Spoon, things like that. So I just want to put that on this commission's radar for consideration down the road whenever, I don't know, there are more developments slated for the area. The Publix went in recently on Lotta, and a lot of housing is going to go in there. There's a development slated for construction just north of Infinity to the east of Roxborough. There's a lot of activity there, and right now there's no plan to do anything about that intersection, and something needs to be done. I'm glad the city embraces the Vision Zero policy, but looking forward, I think that this is a tragedy waiting to happen. There should be some infrastructure put in there to make it safe for pedestrians and bicycles, where right now there is none. So I'll just leave it at that, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for that, John, or sorry, Ed. Any other public comments? All right. Well, then let's welcome our guest presenter, Ellen Beckman, who will be presenting on the County Transit Work Program and Transit Plan.
All right, there you go. Thank you for having us. I'm Ellen Beckman, as mentioned, Durham County Transportation Director. I'm actually just going to be the sidekick to Brandy Miner giving the presentation. So I will turn it over to her, but we'll both help answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. All right, good evening, everyone. And you can advance to the next slide, please. Yep, thank you. In 2011, Durham County voters approved a half-cent sales tax to fund public transportation improvements that expand the quality of service within Durham County and provide greater regional connectivity to the rest of the triangle. The Durham County Transit Plan, which was updated and adopted in 2023, determines how these public transportation funds within Durham County will be managed and spent. As required by state law, the transit plan was approved by the Durham Board of County Commissioners, the Go Triangle Board of Trustees, and the Triangle West Transportation Planning Organization in the spring 2023. Next slide, please. The Transit Governance Interlocal Agreement, also adopted in 2023, establishes the duties and responsibilities of the Staff Working Group. The Staff Working Group is a technical committee serving in an advisory role to the 3 governing boards. The Staff Working Group primarily consists of staff from Durham County, Go Triangle, City of Durham, and Triangle West. We are tasked with coordinating the planning and implementation of the annual work program and the multi-year vision plan. There are 4 voting members, 1 from each organization, who collectively determine which items, such as the work program and any related amendments, should be advanced to the governing boards for approval. Approval of any item before the Staff Working Group requires a minimum of 3 affirmative votes. While the preferred approach is to achieve consensus before advancing items for board consideration, items may be referred to the governing boards if consensus cannot be reached. Next slide, please. The work program is the annual budget for the transit plan, and its primary goal is to advance the projects in the adopted plan. The work program is developed in coordination with our partners over the course of several months and is based on the approved development schedule. The work program must be approved by the county commissioners and the Go Triangle Board of Trustees. Next slide, please. And next slide, sorry. On these next few slides, I will take the opportunity to highlight some of our accomplishments. The Durham Transit Tracker, which went live last year, tracks the financials of all transit plan funded projects. You can see the locations of several of the major transit projects and also each project's implementation metrics. And on this slide is just a screenshot of our dashboard. Next slide, please. Our partners have also been awarded federal funding for some of their projects. Go Triangle's Triangle Mobility Hub received $25 million in June 2024 from the RAISE grant. They also received $2 million in FY26 from community project funding, and they received $5.5 million in April 2024 from Triangle West TPO Regional Flexible Funding Program. Their Nelson Road Bus Maintenance and Operations Facility was recently awarded $17.7 million from the 5336 Bus and Bus Facilities Grant. On the Go Durham side, their Clean Fleet initiative, they have deployed 15 new electric buses, 6 of which were purchased with transit plan funding to use for their expansion services. The city also secured over $6 million in federal funding for their baseline fleet replacement vehicles. Next slide, please. The City of Durham has achieved key milestones across major initiatives, including approvals and site acquisition progress on the Village Transit Center, scope confirmation on the Junction Road Paratransit Maintenance Facility, and near completion design and approvals for the Horton Road project, all of which position multiple projects for bidding and construction in 2026 and 2027. Next slide. Go Durham Connect Micro Transit Service launched and expanded service to the Museum of Life and Science, Trayburn Industrial Park, Welcome Venture Park, and Durham Tech North Campus. They have also provided over 8,000 trips since the launch. Go Durham Access implemented AI-powered phone support and a centralized feedback system to help improve accessibility and reduce wait times. These improvements help them achieve 97% customer satisfaction rating. Next slide, please. On the service expansion side, Go Triangle's Route 400-405 increased to 15-minute service between Durham Station and Chapel Hill, Carborough. They also increased hours and realigned Route 700 to serve NC Central University and Durham Tech between downtown Durham and the Regional Transit Center. Go Durham's Route 3 now operates every 15 minutes, providing frequent and reliable service to Glenview Station and Walmart, with combined 10-minute service offered by Routes 3 and 16 along the shared corridor on Holloway Street. Their Route 16, which replaced the former Route 3B, now operates every 30 minutes, which was previously a 60-minute service. Next slide, please. As it relates to our BRT initiatives, the City of Durham continues to advance the Central Durham BRT project, which is Durham's first BRT corridor, running from the Duke VA Medical Center to Durham Station to the Village. Durham County is leading the BRT Vision Plan, which is a long-term vision for the network of future BRT corridors connecting Durham and key destinations across the region. The BRT Vision Plan study is expected to conclude this fall. Next slide, please. Now I'll move forward into the FY27 work program budget overview. The Article 43 half-cent sales tax, which is our largest revenue source, and in this year's work program, we have received projections that indicate that growth has slowed significantly. As shown on this slide, the decline began in FY25 when the actual revenue received was less than projected, coming in at about $3.4 million less than budgeted. As compared to the 2023 transit plan, revenue growth has decreased from 8% in FY25 to only 3% in FY27. As of December 2025, the Tax District Administration has informed us that we have received approximately 50% or $22 million of the budgeted revenues for FY26. Although we are currently on track to receive all projected revenue from the half-cent sales tax in FY26, the draft FY27 work program will maintain the existing revenue forecast following the Tax District Administration's guidance to proceed with the conservative projection. Next slide, please. Due to the decline in revenues and an overwhelming number of funding requests received from our partners this year, Durham County staff provided a presentation to the governing boards in January. Our goal at that time was to seek direction on how to proceed with the draft work program given the revenue forecast. Following these presentations, I advised the staff working group to proceed with a status quo budget for the draft and to develop options for the boards to consider with the remaining available funding. The draft work program represents a status quo budget, meaning no new projects have been included with the exception of the Durham County Transit Plan update. The staff working group was unable to reach consensus on which projects to advance with the available funding, so a supplemental document outlining each partner's priorities was developed for board consideration. An overview of these priorities will be presented later in the presentation. Next slide, please. The status quo budget maintains the financial model assumptions, including all programmed funding in the multi-year operating and capital improvement program. This MIOP includes all continuing operating projects with the standard 2.5% annual growth rate, and the CIP includes all carryover capital projects as well as future programmed projects in the transit plan. Our fund balance is essential to ensure that we can support future capital and operating projects throughout the life of the plan, which currently extends through FY40. In this year's draft work program, the low point in the financial model occurs in FY35 at approximately $15 million. Since our adopted financial policy requires us to maintain at least $10 million in excess liquidity, we only have $5 million available to allocate to projects. Next slide. As of February 2026, the fund balance in the Durham Transit Plan is $210 million. $51 million is held as a restricted reserve per the currently adopted financial policy. This policy will be reviewed during the next transit plan update. Approximately $45 million is already committed to projects approved in FY25 and earlier work programs. This is primarily due to capital projects being carried forward as the timing of appropriations does not always align with when the funds are actually spent. Of the $114 million remaining, $55 million has been committed to FY26 projects, and the rest is already incorporated into the model for future projects. Investment income has also been a recent topic of discussion amongst the staff working group. We do earn investment income each year on the fund balance, and in FY25, we received about $7.4 million. Since these revenues are highly unpredictable, they are not included in the financial model as a revenue source, and any investment income that we receive is treated as a bonus and added directly to the fund balance. Next slide, please. The overall draft FY27 budget is approximately $57 million. As previously stated, the half-cent sales tax is projected to generate $44 million. The combined $3 and $7 registration fees are expected to generate approximately $2.5 million. We will also draw $10.4 million from the fund balance to maintain a balanced budget. The recommended capital expenditures are $26.5 million, and the recommended operating expenditures are $30.5 million. Next slide, please. The recommended expenditures by agency provides an overview of how the funding is distributed amongst the partners. The majority of the funding is allocated to the City of Durham, who will receive $38.2 million, or 67% of this year's budget, and Go Triangle, who will receive $16.2 million, or 29% of this year's budget. Between these two organizations, they receive 96% of the funding. But it is important to note that some projects, such as the Durham Bus Stop Improvement Program, which is sponsored by Go Triangle, provide benefits to other agencies and are not exclusive to the project sponsor. Next slide, please. We have a number of bus stop access and improvements that are funded and underway, including Go Triangle Bus Stop Improvement Projects, the City of Durham Bus Stop Improvements, Holloway and Fayetteville Transit Emphasis Corridor, and Horton and Junction Road access to transit. In the future, we will have Central Durham BRT, Route 10, Route 9, and Route 4 transit emphasis corridors. Next slide, please. As I mentioned previously, there is only one new project in the draft work program, and it is the Durham Transit Plan update. The ILA requires the plan to be updated every 4 years and will include a review of the current ILA. The staff working group reached consensus to move this request forward, and Durham County staff also recommend incorporating related policy development into the next update. There is a shared interest in improving the work program development process and adding reasonable flexibility in project funding and reducing the conflicts that arise under the current decision-making process. Durham County will sponsor this project, and we are requesting $650,000, which upon approval is expected to begin in early 2027. Next slide, please. Because the staff working group could not reach consensus on which projects to advance for approval, our schedule has been delayed this year by 2 months. The schedule has been modified, but we are on track to secure approval by June 30th. The public comment period recently ended. It ended on this past Friday, and a public engagement report will be prepared and shared with the staff working group and the governing boards. The draft work program has already been presented to the boards, and we are at this point trying to finalize the work program so that we can come back to the governing boards at the end of May and early June to request approval of the final recommended work program. Next slide, please. As I mentioned before, the staff working group could not reach consensus on which projects to move forward, so they were asked to provide their partner budget priorities. Next slide. After the January 2026 presentation, Durham County staff were directed to provide recommendations on how to spend the remaining $5 million available in the financial model. The partners were asked to submit their top priorities, and a total of 7 priorities were received for consideration. The city submitted their 2 maintenance facility projects, which include the Fay Street Bus Operations Maintenance Facility and the Junction Road Paratransit Maintenance Facilities. Funding for these facilities was increased in FY25 when the transit plan share increased from $5 million to $30 million. But with the updated cost estimates, there is now a combined $68.1 million unfunded need for construction that was presumed to be covered by local or federal funding. Updating the CIP with anticipated costs is part of the work program process to ensure that all promised projects can be funded. So at some point in the near future, a solution will need to be identified for these 2 projects. If the solution is to use transit plan funding, the unfunded costs will need to be added to our CIP in the future years. Next slide, please. The remaining 5 priority requests include 2 staffing requests, one from Go Triangle to fund a service planning team that will focus on developing and preparing new transit services that are funded by the plan. And the second is from Triangle West to help fund their participation in the staff working group. I should note that a staffing study was recently approved as an FY26 amendment, and it will assess the staffing needs for current transit activities. That study is expected to conclude later this year. Go Triangle also submitted 2 service expansion requests for consideration for their Route DRX and Route 800, both of which receive 50% of their funding from Wake and Orange counties, respectively. One capital project was submitted by Durham County to help develop a more efficient system for submitting project budget requests. However, at this time, Durham County staff are exploring other options that may not involve transit plan funding. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, the public engagement period opened on March 27th and April 17th. We're required to advertise for 21 days. And information about the work program was available on the Durham County Transportation website, and we also advertised on Durham County's social media platforms. A survey was also available online, and 3 in-person tabling sessions were held at Durham Station, where staff were on site to answer questions and help residents complete the survey. Residents could also submit comments via email at transportation@dconc.gov. A public engagement report, as I mentioned before, is in the process of being prepared and will be shared with the governing boards. Next slide. I think that's it. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for them? Yeah, go ahead.
The numbers you have for the fund and the budget going out, are those inflation adjusted or are those actual dollars?
In our CIP,
In the presentation here, you had the, what the projected fund balance and budget going forward. Is that adjusting for inflation? Or-
that is our current balance. Yes. So it is not adjusted for inflation.
Thank you.
Well,
Maybe
okay. Yeah.
We do assume a growth rate like of the sales tax going forward. The revenues generally will be going up, I don't know, an average is around 4% a year or something like that in the model. And then we also incorporate, as Brandy said, like all the ongoing operating projects increasing by about 2.5% per year from the existing cost. So, generally following inflation, capital projects also have an assumed, I think it's 4% or 3.1% inflation. So yes, it includes both growth and inflation of both the revenues and the expenses. So.
And if anybody else has a question, just jump on the mic. Yeah, Scott first.
So you mentioned that the fund balance will be at a low point in 2035 approximately. What's causing the big expenditure in that time frame in order to reduce the fund balance by so much?
So our model, so every project in the transit plan is programmed into the model. So when you add in all of the projects that are currently going on, and then all the projects that are planned in the future, that's what's left of the fund balance is the 5 million. So we have 15 million. And so with our policy, we have to maintain at least 10 million in excess liquidity. So we can only have 5 million available at this time. So all of our projects from the plan are programmed. So we can fund everything that's currently in our transit plan right now, but we still have 5 million available outside of that.
Does that mean there's a big construction project or something in 2034 that's going to eat up a big chunk of that?
Yes, there are.
What would that project be? Do you already know?
There are a number of projects.
Yeah, there are a number of projects. The big one, when we did the 23 plan, was commuter rail was a topic of discussion at that time, if you recall. When we finished the plan, we had not determined if it was moving forward or not. So we had a placeholder kind of in there, assuming that it was going to move forward. Soon after the plan was adopted, the commuter rail study concluded, and the conclusion of the region was that was not a viable project at this time. So that represents like kind of the biggest project that's in there. That is the source of funding that we are now dedicating to bus rapid transit. So the two projects that Brandy mentioned early, the Central Durham BRT would use that funding. And then the vision plan, the BRT vision plan, looking at all the corridors, including like connections to Durham or connections to Chapel Hill, Raleigh, there was a little map on that slide. That is available, the funding would be available to fund those projects. So that, as Brandy said, that's going to conclude at the end of the year. So we expect to amend the transit plan to better reflect like a series of projects probably over time instead of one big commuter rail project. So there will be changes over the next year, but we are being, I guess, deliberate about studying those and picking the right corridors in a realistic time frame and engaging the three boards on this and making sure that they agree that this is the path forward. And the operating of that. So there's the construction and then the ongoing operating. And so that will very much change for sure, because a big train project and operating is going to be a lot different than maybe multiple bus projects over time and the operating associated with that.
Yeah, the operating, like I mentioned, it has a built-in growth rate of 2.5%. So that's staffing, that's all of the bus routes. So all of that stuff grows automatically in the model by 2.5%. And everything is programmed out through FY40 right now. So that eats up a lot of the funding too.
And I don't, just to add to that, so we had a longer version of this presentation that had pie charts, which were my favorite. But about 26% of the money is for that commuter rail placeholder. So 74% is for everything else. So I don't want to kind of misrepresent it. Like, it is a chunk of money, but it's not all the money or by any means. There was a big shift between the 2019 plan and the 2023 plan to do more smaller projects, more bus projects, more bus stop improvements. And that's what we've been focusing on and doing for the last 4 years. So yes, there's a chunk of money out there to be allocated to bus rapid transit, but it's just for perspective, it's about 26% of the total.
And something else I didn't mention, well, I did, but just to give a little bit of context. So like in the years FY 25 and 26, when we had those additional revenues, we added a lot of new projects that weren't in the plan. So we're, paying for that now. And those are things that weren't in the transit plan that we added through the annual work program process. So this year, we just don't have a lot of extra cushion to add a lot of new projects.
I have a question. Just not sure I understood something that I heard correctly. You were talking about, you were doing some math, totaling up funding, and something jumped out at me that you said that I'm not sure I heard correctly, but you said 10 million had to be taken out to help balance the county budget. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, you did. So,
And so I guess my question would be then, what projects or what areas that $10 million would have, gone towards are impacted by the subtraction of that 10 or the reallocation of that $10 million?
I think okay. So with our budget, because when I say we have to have a balanced budget, so our primary revenue source is the half-cent sales tax. And then we also receive revenues from the $3 and $7 registration fee. So when we added up what we projected with those we're going to bring in for next year, we were still short the 10.4 million. So we are going to pull that from fund balance. So are you asking what was that 10.4 million going to be used for that we're pulling from fund balance?
Yeah.
So our fund balance is like 210 million right now. So we have, that's like our savings, but there is additional, even though it's programmed out and it accounts for all the projects that are in our model, we still maintain a cushion within our financial model. So that 15 million that we have available is because we have a sufficient fund balance to cover everything. But even after we account for all of the projects that are already in the plan or in the model, we still had 15 million available. So if you take out the 10 million that we're required to maintain, we now have 5 million after we've taken out that 10 million that we're drawing from the fund balance. So essentially we had more available. I'm
Yeah.
no,
Yeah, no.
I'm trying to explain it. So basically we had more funding available in the fund balance. But now that we need that 10.4 million to balance our budget for the year, now we only have 15 million in excess liquidity, which we have to reserve 10 per our adopted financial policy.
And will that $10 million, you all won't forget about that. That's $10 million that belongs in the transit plan sort of fund at some point when the county is, I guess in better shape. Will that be reallocated back to the transit?
So with our operating projects, they don't roll over from year to year. So any funding that is not spent, so like if you have a $3 million budget for a route and you only spend $2 million, that $1 million goes back to the fund balance at the end of the year.
Okay.
So, yep.
Thank you.
So I have a few questions. I'm going to try to bundle them together for the sake of time. One is, I'm not sure how much transit budget, especially at the county level, is impacted by property taxes. But there's some talk that the General Assembly has a desire to limit the ability to control property taxes for municipalities. And so I'm kind of curious if there's been any analysis. I don't know if that impacts the county level budget. I suspect it doesn't as much, but if there's any early analysis of whether that's going to impact our transit budgets. Second would be, I I know it's probably a smaller item relative to the big projects, but there's a lot of discussion about fare free. And whether we're going to return to fares, whether we're not going to return to fares. And again, I'm not really sure how that falls on city versus county budget wise. So I'm curious if that's impacted by this transit plan. And then related to that, when we're looking at making those kinds of decisions, are we looking at sort of our peers that have gone through a similar process? Thinking specifically about Go Raleigh. I don't have the numbers in front of me. Unfortunately, I wanted to be a little bit better organized about this, but I have a friend who's on the Go Raleigh Transit Authority, and they had a meeting recently talking about the actual amount of fare recovery relative to what was expected as they were trying to, I guess, fix some budget issues. I say fix loosely, right? Trying to get that off there as this annual thing. It turns out their fare recovery has come in way under what their estimates were. And so they're ending up having to essentially fund fare free without actually having free fares. And so they're not really getting the revenue. So it's one of those things that like, it looks good on paper when you're doing the budget for next year, the year after. But in real world terms, based on the amount of ridership that qualifies for free fares, even when you bring fares back, and the actual rate of fare recovery has struggled. And I think Durham actually has a higher rate of ridership that would qualify anyway. So I suspect that the situation is going to be even less, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it, rosy for us. So I'm curious if that's kind of been looked at as part of the budget.
So, and Ellen, you can feel free to jump in. So with the fare free, so we do currently have two projects in our work program. One for the city of Durham called the DIME program, and then the other one for Go Triangle, which is it's now called Transit Assistance Program. It was called Low Income Fare Program. So both of those projects were added to our work program in FY25 to support the fare free initiatives, because fare free is not in the 2023 plan. But through the work program process, we did set aside funding to help Go Triangle in the city of Durham with the fare free, because as you know, city of Durham did not return to fares. I think Go Triangle did return to fares. And so their project, the low income fare pass, it helps riders who are low income basically still ride the bus for free. And then on the city side, the DIME program, we're essentially helping them recover some of the funding that they're losing, or revenues that they're losing from not collecting fares. So for the city, that's about, I think in this work program, it's almost $400,000 a year. Full transparency, the city did submit a request when we were first beginning the budget development process. They requested, I think, $2.2 million a year to offset the full cost of fare free. And so when we came to the governing boards in January, we presented all of these options, that fare free initiative, along with a number of other projects that were submitted by the city. Actually, all of our partners, not just the city of Durham. At that time, when we put all of those requests in the model, we were at a negative 150 million. So we had to go back to the drawing board. And that's kind of why this whole partner budget priority process was started. And so we came back to the board and we said, okay, submit your top priority. And the city submitted their maintenance facilities. So they did not submit their fare-free initiative in that second round for consideration. They said that the maintenance facilities were their main priority, and that's why we are bringing that forward to the governing boards for consideration.
Yeah, well, a few things. Just for general context, right? This is primarily funded through the sales tax, the countywide sales tax. Go Durham as a system is a city-sponsored, agency, and is primarily funded through the city's revenue sources, including the property tax, right? And so how this has generally worked since the beginning of the plan was that the city was responsible for paying for the baseline kind of services that existed before the plan, before the sales tax was approved back in 2011. So they're responsible for that using their revenue sources, and that the sales tax is going towards the improvement of the system. So more routes and running the routes more frequently, and stop improvements, projects, all that stuff. I just want to make that distinction. So to your property tax question, like the Durham County Transit Plan is not responsible for all of the cost, right? It's only responsible for the improvement cost. The city would need to find the revenues to maintain the existing service and the increased cost of that service according to our adopted plan. I know that is very difficult right now. It's a bad budget year for everyone in both the city and the county. You know, the property tax bill that you mentioned, it definitely would apply to counties too. And I could say for sure that the county is very concerned about that. You know, the county property tax generally does not go to transit. It goes to like all the county services and schools and all that, right? So like if there was that property tax, it would affect, I think, both the city and the county's operations significantly. So that being said, I guess there's a distinction between the two, but there's kind of a little bit of a blurred line here, right? And that's some of the issues that we're facing this year.
I have a follow-up question. So the DIME program that you were mentioning before that you were helping subsidize or pay for, is that still happening? Are y'all still
Yes.
supporting that? Okay.
Yes, the DIME and Go Triangle's transit assistance. So both of those projects are still in the draft. Yes. And they grow by 2.5% every year, the budget.
Can you talk a little bit more about, I think this is coming up with, it's a tough budget year. These decisions are just hard to make. You mentioned on one of those slides the desire to improve the work program development process and kind of address some of those conflicts that come up. Can you say a little bit more about kind of like what you would like to see there?
So the staff working group, we are an advisory committee, and oftentimes that creates conflict because, everything does have to come to a vote. So like the work program, any type of amendments, everything has to come to a vote. And a lot of times we don't always agree. And so that causes conflict about what to advance to the governing boards. Now I don't know if in the future we will look to change the structure of the group, but we definitely need to come up with ways that we can better work together and all sort of drive towards the same goal, because everyone is essentially, advocating for their projects and their money or their request. And so it's hard in a year like this when we don't have enough money to spread around. Like in the prior 2 years, we had all of that extra revenue. It was easy. Everybody got along. The work program got approved, no problems. But this year, everyone is like, my priority is like the top priority. And we're having to, make these tough decisions and have these choices and trade-offs. And like I said, we just couldn't agree. We're 2 months behind our regular schedule because we just could not agree. And now we're at a point to where we have to move forward, because if we do not, we will not have a new budget. We will have an interim budget on July 1st. So we're trying to avoid that. And we're still playing, we're going along. We're trying to wrap this up hopefully within the next 2 weeks so that, we can have a final recommended work program to present for approval by the governing boards in June. But a number of things. I think we also need tighter policies. Like a lot of our existing policies need to be updated. And then we also need a lot of new policies that, that have just come out of all of these discussions and conflicts that we've had. So that is one of the things that we're trying to do with the next transit plan update, make sure we have some type of policy development and also do like an existing conditions analysis to kind of see what are we doing and how can we improve it to help these decisions much easier in the future. So.
And to add to that, the staff working group is advisory, right? And typically budget decisions are made by the elected bodies, right? That's really where the responsibility lies. This is a very unique situation, right? State statute. It's a county-wide tax. So the county commissioners had to agree on the plan and agree to put it on the ballot. Go Triangle, though, collects the tax. Like it's not sitting in the county's bank account, it's sitting in Go Triangle's bank account. And then the MPO, the Triangle West, has a responsibility for approving the plan as well and making sure that it is matching their long-range plan. So it's a 3 elected board approval process, which is difficult. And I think that was maybe intentionally done so because when this originally was envisioned, it was to go towards these big projects that take a long time, like light rail, commuter rail. So it really wasn't seen as something that would change a lot and change every year. It is an inherently inflexible kind of process, but people are project sponsors want more flexibility. So that's really kind of, I guess, at the heart of it is like sticking with a long-range plan, a long-range vision, getting 3 boards to agree, and then having the pressure to make budget decisions on an individual level at each year that could affect that long-range plan. And there being tension between the 2 goals.
Because essentially the work program really should just be carrying out the adopted plan. But again, we've had extra revenue available. And so we've added things and changed things. And now it's kind of become the norm when it really should just be sticking to what that long range plan says. So I think that's driving a lot of the conflict too.
Yeah, we are doing a number of things to kind of fix that long range plan and make sure it reflects our more recent priorities, right? So the bus rapid transit vision plan will do that. And then as Brandy said, the new transit plan update would begin. And so that would be all the projects and kind of resetting that vision. And hopefully then we will follow that vision, at least for the next 4 years.
Yeah, and that will take probably we're estimating about 18 months. So if the funding is approved, we would begin probably the beginning of calendar year 2027 and take about 18 months. To be able, now I know we discussed implementing it in phases, but generally all of the decisions from that transit plan should be implemented in the FY30 work program. So.
Great, thank you guys. Does anybody else have any questions? Great. Well, thank you all for coming and for your presentation. You're welcome to stick around for the rest of the meeting, but you're also welcome to head home if you don't want to. Yeah, of course. All right, next item on our agenda is new business. So I added earlier today the crossing guard letter. We're not going to thoroughly discuss this, but I just wanted to say I forgot to put this in a letterhead and have you all review it before this meeting. So we still have time to review it and vote on it at the May meeting, but before it needs to go to council for their work session and public hearings and things like that. So it is currently in the April folder. I believe it was also printed out. So if you would like to review that, please do so before the May meeting and then we'll vote on it there. And then now we have Katie Peralt's going to present on the 2026 guiding principles that PMP created.
Great, thank you, Mary Rose. Does everyone have a copy of them or would you like me to share my screen? I'm not sure if you have them in the room.
We all have a copy, yeah.
Great. So thank you. We in the Planning and Policy Committee undertook to review the guiding principles that had been drafted at a BPAC retreat several years ago and to look at them sort of with fresh eyes and consider what a 2026 set of guiding principles might look like. So we did some work to pull together both a draft mission statement and guiding principles, which you can see now. The mission statement is intended to be a plain language statement of BPAC's role. And then the guiding principles are intended to serve as a high level set of evergreen. I mean, I'm struggling to describe them without using the words guiding principles, but principles that will guide us. And so we intentionally did not include specific initiatives or policies as part of this, but more an overarching framing that we would reference in the work that we do. So to read them out, they are safety first, accessible to all, connected complete networks, evidence-based recommendations, community voice, and collaboration and partnership. And the idea is that when we're putting together position papers or drafting a letter or providing input to an official process, we would do it in the spirit of these principles, and we could use these as a backstop to make sure that we have consistency across what we're doing and that we're approaching our work kind of with the same vision and mentality. We've also discussed kind of how these would fit in with overarching orientation work that we're working to revamp and potentially some strategic work plans down the line, but we can save those items for discussion later. I just wanted to bring these to the meeting today and thank you to the members of the Planning and Policy Committee who provided feedback on an earlier draft. Their feedback is incorporated here. But I would like to invite discussion on these, or if you all like them, consider adopting them tonight.
Thank you, Katie. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, Maggie first.
I am not sure if Maggie has her microphone on, but I cannot hear her.
Okay, hello. For number 2, the first part of that sentence feels a little redundant if we're saying people of all ages and physical abilities. I don't know that we then need to also say children, older adults, and people with disabilities. That just feels, all ages feels like that encompasses, and physical abilities feels like those just already encompass it. And I just feel like the tighter we can keep this, the better.
Well noted. I think we listed the specific age ranges, and people with disabilities because we have commissioners who specifically represent those groups. But absolutely open to amendment of that section because I agree with you, it is a bit redundant.
This is Jeff. This probably is kind of nitpicking, but in the mission statement, BPAC advises elected officials, government departments, and the public. I don't think we really advise the public. We inform the public, but we don't advise them in the same way that we say advise the city council or the county commissioners. So that just kind of doesn't seem to work there.
I think that is reference to the interlocal agreement, but John, maybe are you able to respond on that point? Could you turn on your microphone too, please?
So that wasn't added, that wasn't in the original one, that was added at my request because in the interlocal and bylaws, it says we have a role to interact with the public. And I can't remember whether I think I have a copy of it. I could find it in a few minutes, but it does, advising the public is part of that long draft of things that we do. And, so we were just trying to keep it in line with that. We can check the language about advisor and form, see if that needs to be updated.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I guess it's a different type of advice, like we're giving advice versus, suggesting that government officials do something. But it's still advising to some capacity.
And one other little thing to kind of add on to what Maggie said is I would want the word physical in front of abilities to be removed because it's not just physical abilities. All ages and abilities, I think, covers it better.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think one thing that's nice about using that specific language of all ages and abilities is I think that's used frequently in other transportation-related documents. Like if I remember right, NACTO specifically talks about all ages and abilities. So what's nice about that is that there's a baseline of like what that means. So I think getting concise with that, like I understand the desire to be more specific, especially when we're trying to lead the the bodies that we are advising to where this needs to go. But at the same time, that language is very specific to transportation, broader transportation documents. So I think I like the idea of using that because it's reflected. They'll see that pattern when they look at NACDA, when they look at all these other things that say all ages and abilities.
Yeah, so this is Scott. My comment is that every month, the beginning of the meeting, we read this equity acknowledgement, and it seems that these guiding principles are very understated, or because they really don't mention to any level of detail the things that we talk about in the equity acknowledgement. And so I kind of feel like if we really, this is our chance to put our money where our mouth is with this acknowledgement, equity and land acknowledgement statement. If we're going to, identify these different groups, marginalized identities, I would think that we would be referring to them in our guiding principles, that those things would kind of line up. The fact that we're having it in one place and not the other, to me, seems a little inconsistent.
Yeah, that is something that we discussed within the committee as well. A prior draft had more explicit language aligned with the equity and land acknowledgement statement. And through our discussion, we sort of decided to walk it back a little bit, not because we don't think that that's important, but sort of wanting this to appeal to a broader audience that could all sort of get behind it, and still wanting to maintain the equity acknowledgement as something that we do in the meetings. But that sounds like maybe something that we should take back and do some more consideration on and engagement within the commission.
Yeah, and I'm not making a judgment about about how to make it consistent. I'm just saying right now I observe this inconsistency. And so I think it either needs to be strengthened so that it's in both places, or kind of like weakened so that we're not making such an emphasis about it in each meeting. And then when we have a chance to, do something more specific with it, anyway, I just think we need to make it more consistent than it is right now. So either strengthen it in one place or weaken it in the other.
Yeah, to say what Katie was saying in a less politically correct way, the current administration hates certain words. And so there were certain words in here that we thought maybe we could retool to mean the same thing, but avoid keywords. But we can undo that because it's unlikely that that would matter for an advisory board.
Yeah, I could see there not being a real problem with our advisory board. But also maybe we could, I know we have like community voice and collaboration and partnership. Maybe we could jazz those up slightly more to, re-jazz them up to slightly reflect more of what we're discussing in our equity and land acknowledgement.
When we started this, we went back to the 2019, 2020 work, and because those are the only files we could find. And what we found was, it looks like kind of a two-page thing that was a working draft of where we needed to go. And then there was this presentation document. And it doesn't look like we ever arrived at something, because the presentation document is very long. It mentions things like Vision Zero and all the programs, and it really wasn't guiding principles as much. And the idea was to say, look, if you really believe in what the purpose of guiding principles are, it's something that kind of keeps you grounded. It keeps you focused. It's a way of judging whether you have done good work, et cetera. And it becomes something you really believe in. It becomes a primary thing that you refer to on a regular basis. And there are not many organizations, in my experience, that actually do that with guiding principles. A lot of times it's interesting language, but then that's where it stops, and we look at them every 5 or 6 years. And I will tell you, I kind of had that approach to when I was working on my own draft on this before we got together as the group, because I first said, okay, what is it that we do at BPAC? And so I put the cart in front of the horse, and I said, okay, let's redefine that and try to make it sound very focused. And then, okay, then what guiding principles should we have? And that was basically the wrong way around. If you really believe in this stuff, you've got to start working from the guiding principles, and that becomes the thing that's most important. And then go back and look at, is the work that we're doing relevant to those? Okay, and if not, then we need to make some changes. And I go back just from a personal experience. Last year, I was involved in 2 projects. One of them was the Hope Valley report, and the other was the UDO task force. If I look at the work I did, and I was doing most of that work, okay, I only give myself today a C- or a B+ on that work. If this had been truly based on an organization with guiding principles, and we had the principle of collaboration, there would have been more involvement. There would have been people with knowledge about things that I didn't know about that we could have used on the Hope Valley thing, or the other side, if it was about collaboration, there would have been people who challenged it. I can remember making those reports. Nobody, whether they'd read them or not, nobody challenged anything. Okay, and I was sitting there, okay, great, it feels good at the time, but there were things that should have been included that were not, and there are things that should have been rephrased that were not, and we weren't acting as the organization that we could be, because those 2 documents could have been a lot better. And so the point on this, and I think Katie did a great job in cleaning up this and really trying to keep it, how do you say it in the fewest words, what those principles should be? I think we're very close at this point, but it's something we need to honestly take a look at. How do we work as an organization together? I shouldn't be able to go through a process like that without help, and I shouldn't be able to go through a process like I did last year without challenge. Okay, something's not right there. And so that's what we're looking to do, is let's start with something basic, agree to it, and let's put it in place. And then we use that as a way of going forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that. Anybody else have anything they want to add? Go ahead.
I just want to comment that I like the way this is laid out, because I see a lot of consistency with what's been covered in the transportation section of the long-term comprehensive plan, in terms of what was elicited from the public and from various committees and people who were engaged in that process, all identifying what is it about transportation that we want to sort of guide our path forward in Durham. And I spent a lot of time working on that project, and a lot of what's reflected in these guiding principles, as I said, is consistent with a lot of what's in the long-term comprehensive plan. So it's just something that I observed and think is worth noting.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think the comprehensive plan, BPAC worked a lot on providing feedback for that plan. So it is good to see that we kind of agree with what we provided.
Just what?
It's on.
Did I turn that one? Or just one other comment on the collaboration thing. There are 2 components to that. One is like seeking collaboration, like opening the door to it, but we don't necessarily have control over whether other people are going to be willing to collaborate, other agencies, other, departments, divisions, commissions, are going to step up. But I think my phone's talking to me though. Hold on, sorry. I think just making the effort to sort of invite collaboration when we're working on projects, whether it's the UDO task force or we're constantly looking at that in the community engagement group. We do a lot with Bike Durham. I think collaboration is a really, really important thing, but it's one thing to make the effort to seek and to invite collaboration, but it can be really frustrating where there's a lack of response or lack of willingness on outsiders. And it's unfortunate that, where there's an opportunity to collaborate on something, collaborators just aren't willing to step up, but the work still needs to go forward. Anyway.
Yeah, we could make that principle more aspirational to reflect that it's outside of our control. Like we aim to work across departments or something like that. But this is all very helpful feedback. I'm also, Mary Rose, thinking about the crossing guard letter through this lens. Like, if we had these guiding principles in place, how that might shape the way that we draft a letter about crossing guards in terms of, it, and I think most of this is like in the letter already. But I think it provides a helpful frame, starting with safety first. Obviously, crossing guards are about safety. It's about children getting to school. So you get the people of all ages piece in. We could add some data to make it evidence-based. And for the community voice and collaboration piece, there might be an opportunity there to notify. I think we know what schools are in play, like kind of notify those schools or neighborhood associations. We're going to be providing a recommendation on this. We invite you to also participate in that or something, just a touch point to get input if that's possible, or to at least tell them, here's what we're putting forward, and maybe they want to sort of copy paste and sign in on behalf of the neighbors or something like that.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Any other? Oh, you can go ahead. I was going to say, anybody else have anything to say? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I think I've taken some notes on the feedback that we've gotten so far. We in the Planning and Policy Committee can sort of take that back and work to incorporate it. And if anyone has additional feedback or thoughts that they'd like to share in writing, please feel free to send them to Nathan or John or me, and we can take it back in the committee if that works for you, Nathan.
Yeah, sounds great. We meet the first Thursday of the month, so you have between now and the first Thursday of the month to get all your thoughts to us. And you're also all welcome to come to our meeting.
Thank you.
I did find the language. It says to educate and inform the public and the local officials on bicycle and pedestrian issues. That's from the bylaws.
Okay. Well, great.
Actually, from the interlocal
The
cooperation.
interlocal agreement, yeah. Okay, well, it sounds like we don't need to vote to approve this. It'll go back to PMP, and then maybe we'll have something at the next meeting, which moves us on to committee and liaison reports. So both of our government liaisons are not here. So we'll go ahead and move on to committee reports, starting with Hannah Barbel.
All right. Always a good time at community engagement. In April this month, we talked about a few things. Rails to Trails is still my white whale for the year. Reaching out to the library about potentially hosting, and then shout out to Mary Rose for the recommendation of Bullseye Bicycle, which hosts a movie night. I have messaged them on Instagram.
Great. I actually talked to somebody in person who
Oh my God.
earlier today, and they said to message them on Instagram. So
They haven't responded yet, but I will.
maybe they'll be looking for it.
I'm not above a double message, so I will message them again, but stay tuned. Rails to Trails will happen before December. That is my promise to myself. Beyond that, Bike Month is coming up in May. We are planning for a few things there, one of which is some bike business outreach. So huge shout out to Erin for printing our flyers. On May 16th, approximately 11 a.m., we're planning to meet up downtown and do a walk and knock campaign. Everyone is welcome. Take as long or as little as you like. Could be one business, but basically we have a flyer that shows what it means to be a bicycle-friendly business by the League of American Bicyclists, and we want to go around and ask local businesses to think about ways that they can increase their bicycle-friendly nature. Other things that we have coming up this month, earlier this month, shout out to Trent, shout out to Rosie. We tabled at the farmer's market. Shout out to Scott. We tabled at Earth Day. As we look ahead to May, we've got, again, that walk and knock on the 16th. And then May 9th is the Bike Durham Bike Stampede. Mary Rose will be tabling there for us. I will be out of town, but we'd love more volunteers for folks who are interested. Should be a really good time. And then we are targeting potentially tabling a run club in June to get to that pedestrian team. We also talked a little bit about in the future when Hannah Salvaggio is back and acclimated, giving her a little bit of time to ease back into things, seeing if we can embed a Google Calendar on the website that includes updated events so we can kind of point folks to that as a one-stop shop. And then we're continuing to kind of iterate on that map of BPAC representation that we talked about last time, looking at the geographic distribution of current BPAC members, where we might have some holes, so we can think about some targeted outreach in the coming months. So particularly thinking of neighborhoods where we don't have current members.
Yeah, and on that point, if anybody is interested in including where they work on that map, feel free to email me that information and I'll put it in. And I believe this will just be internal map, so you don't need to worry about other people seeing it. But yeah, it'll be a volunteer thing for where you work to be added to the map.
Yes. The last thing I will add is we are very, very sad that Ed will be terming off of BPAC. And I will say that also, he's been a great and consistent participant in community engagement. So if anyone's really feeling the itch on the second Tuesday of each month to, engage the community, come on down to our meetings. They're fun. It's a good time. Think about it.
And they're usually really short. So
That's right.
if you want just like 30 minutes.
I run a tight ship.
All right. So additionally, I want to ask for a motion to approve the March meeting minutes for the Community Engagement Committee. All right, moved by Ed, seconded by Jeff. Chris, you were too slow. All those in favor say aye or raise their hand. All those opposed? Great. Seeing none, so the March minutes have been approved for the community engagement meeting. And then moving on to development review.
All right, this will be fast. Development review, we did not meet because we had no business. Last week, I guess, we only had one case that was open, and it was a second revision that had minimal change. So it also conflicted with the e-bike presentation by state, I think. And so
Bike Walk and See.
by who?
Bike Walk and See.
Bike Walk and See. Thank you. And so we canceled our meeting, and so there's really nothing to report on. March business, I think I talked about last time, so I guess we can vote on approving the March minutes.
Yeah, can I get a motion for March minutes? Moved by Chris, can I get a second? Second by John. All those in favor say aye, raise their hand. All those opposed? The minutes have been approved. And then moving on to planning and policy.
Hello. Okay. we met, we talked about stuff. So we talked about Third Fork Creek Trail Phase 2 for a little bit, and then I got some follow-up information that I will share. So it seems like nothing has been happening, but actually things have been happening. It seems like the city of Durham has purged a lot of their project pages to now only have a single sentence description and random pictures that are semi-related to the project and no other actual information on them. But I was able to track down some information from Dale, our DOS liaison. And so they did submit 90% design plans for the second phase of the Third Fork Creek Trail, which would go from Southern Boundaries Park through the right-of-way through the land that the city already owns to Cornwallis Road, where it would cross and go down Weaver Street for a little bit, and then it would go through a bunch of forest and wetlands to eventually get over to Fayetteville Street. And then they would make a big multi-use path sidewalk down Fayetteville Street to get to the ATT. And so they have already created 90% plans for that and submitted them to NCDOT and others so that they can start the right-of-way acquisition for the wetland woods that they're going to buy. And so I found that frustrating. And so did Dale, but Dale I got a very long email thread of Dale going back and forth with them for a long time. And basically the thing was like, we already spent all this money to get to 90% plans. We are not going to entertain the idea of any cheaper routing options than going through wetlands. Thank you for your time, was the summary. So that's how that's going. But at least the section from Southern Boundaries, Cornwallis, the city already owns all that. And it's already mostly clear for a sewer easement, so that portion of the trail that is much longer than the other portion will be cheaper. So that's fun. So that was one thing we talked about for a while. Since a transit person is still here, there were improvements to routes 4 and 9 that were going to happen this year that are maybe not going to happen. Is that correct? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I should have left now. So improving Route 4 and 9 to 15-minute service was approved in last year's work program. So it's currently funded, but it hasn't been implemented yet by the city of Durham.
Okay.
So it's in the plan, it's in the work program, and it would be in the draft work program too at this point.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
On the 4, I recently spoke to folks at Go Durham. They're implementing service improvements May 30th. And one of the things they're going to be doing is they're going to be improving to 15-minute headways on the 4, I believe from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Okay.
And I think if I understood it correctly, there's going to be a 4B, which terminates north at Old Farm instead of going all the way to the old, where Northern High School used to be. So the bulk of the route's going to have 15-minute service from 2 to 7 and starting May 30th.
Okay, cool.
I don't know about the 9.
Okay.
So
I don't use it, so I didn't ask.
I do want to point out that the city staff have recently reached out to us saying that those may be delayed, but I just, from a Durham County perspective, it is funded.
Right,
And Durham County is not changing, or hasn't changed that at this point. Okay, if the city changes it, that's on the city.
Thank you. We also reviewed some plans to make improvements to Elba Street, which if you go to Duke University, the emergency room, directly across the street from the emergency room is that parking garage. And then Elba Street is the street above that, that people use basically as an extra on-off ramp for 147. So people go extremely fast through there because they like accelerate onto 147, or as they very, 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 very slowly decelerate from 147. So they're doing some improvements there, including the possibility of a ways crosswalk if the fire department does not poo-poo that idea. So we reviewed that for a while. we also obviously talked about the guiding principles for a long time. And then we also talked about some more and better onboarding work that we are working towards, including the idea was floated of creating a BPAC specific wiki. And so if anyone would like to do that or help me do that, reach out. And Chris has a question.
Did you talk about the Alston Avenue thing?
Oh, yeah, there's a property up in North Durham that's doing a rezoning. And as part of that rezoning, they have to set aside 80 feet of right-of-way for an Alston Avenue extension that is in the current CTP that kind of nobody in the city actually wants to happen. But because it's in the current CTP, they have to set aside a huge chunk of their land that they could have built on instead.
So for context on why I asked about that, I think from planning policy perspective, we're concerned on how older plans aren't necessarily being reviewed, and it's just automatically we're asking developers to set aside right of way. That could be extra green space, it could be more housing near, in this case, a bus route. From a broader perspective, and then I think it's also interesting for DevRev if this case comes before y'all.
It did.
Oh, did it
We're
already?
reviewing it. Yeah.
Oh, are they currently, or they already did?
It's second review, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
and second review. So we were kind of surprised by that Alston Avenue extension because that's almost certainly never going to happen, and I don't think anybody would want it to happen.
I don't want it to happen. And that's it. So any motion to approve the minutes for planning and policy
For April.
for April.
Moved by Trent. Can I get a second?
Second.
Oh, second by Jeff and Katie. All those in favor say aye, raise their hand. Those opposed? Great, the April minutes have been approved. All right, so we're really early on time, but because we've been running late on most of our meetings, we recently decided to do summary reports for the other liaisons. And this information was gathered within the last, or most of it was gathered prior to a week ago. Dale McKeel added his information on last Wednesday, which was when the DOST commission met. So we won't be going through these, but if anybody from any of these other liaisons has anything that they feel like needs to come forward to be discussed, you may do that now. Go ahead.
So Bus Rapid Transit Vision Plan, Ed and I have been the reps to that, and Ed made the comment that he's phasing out and we probably should have another person designated from BPAC on that. And I now have a conflict for the meeting. It's only the second meeting, and it's May 5th, I believe. It's a couple Tuesdays from now. And so right now there's no BPAC member who is planning or is able to attend. And so it would be great if we could get somebody else to represent us.
I'd love to do that.
Fantastic. Yep, it's May 5th, 2 p.m. and it's in the new county building, room 461.
Okay, in person?
Yes.
Is there a invite that I'll need?
I can forward it to you.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds great. And thank you for still being able to attend, even though you're slowly fading off from us. And yeah, thank you, Chris, for also volunteering. All right, so I have a couple of announcements. Oh, first off, are there any questions for the committee or liaison reports? Great. So some announcements. Those who are county representatives, you should have received an invitation for next Monday, April 27th, for a volunteer appreciation event at 5:30. It'll be at the county building where it was last year, also 200 East Main Street. I believe the city representatives get a different appreciation event, and since I'm not usually around September, okay. Since I'm a county representative, I only get the county invites. So city representatives, look forward to your invitations closer to September. And then the next item is that Jack O'Shea, his family is having a mass and a celebration of life this Friday. The mass will be at Immaculate Conception Catholic Church at 3 p.m. and then the celebration of life will follow roughly around 4 p.m. at Crosdale Country Club. So if anybody is available or would like to attend either of those, you're more than welcome. I plan to at least attend the mass. I'm not sure how I'm going to get to Crosdale Country Club from the church on a bicycle, but I will be attending the mass. So, and that's it. Our next BPAC meeting will also be in person, and for the ease for Hannah, we're just going to have it here again and not try to have it at a different location. We could consider having it at a different location for the June meeting. So if you have any ideas, bring them to the May meeting and we can discuss them there. Okay, that's all we've got. So thank you all for coming. We're ending 27 minutes early. Yeah, so thank you. That's it.
Thank you.